Seventh, reminiscences, pranayama, thought reading, knowledge of previous births. Shri Priya Sinha. A day or two later, as I was coming out of my house intending to pay a visit to Swamiji, I met two of my friends who expressed a wish to accompany me, for they wanted to ask Swamiji something about pranayama. I had heard that one should not visit a temple or a sannyasin without taking something as an offering, so we took some fruits and sweets with us and placed them before him. Swamiji took them in his hands, raised them to his head, and bowed to us before even we made our obeisance to him. One of the two friends with me had been a fellow student of his. Swamiji recognized him at once and asked about his health and welfare. Then he made us sit down by him. There were many others there who had come to see and hear him. After replying to a few questions put by some of the gentlemen, Swamiji, in the course of his conversation, began to speak about pranayama. First of all, he explained through modern science the origin of matter from the mind, and then went on to show what pranayama is. All three of us had carefully read beforehand his book called Raja Yoga. But from what we heard from him that day about pranayama, it seemed to me that very little of the knowledge that was in him had been recorded in that book. I understand also that what he said was not mere book learning, for who could explain so lucidly and elaborately all the intricate problems of religion, even with the help of science, without himself realizing the truth? His conversation on pranayama went on from 3:30 till 7:30 in the evening. When the meeting dissolved and we came away, my companions asked me how Swamiji could have known the questions that were in their hearts, and whether I had communicated to him their desire for asking those questions. A few days after this occasion, I saw Swamiji in the house of the late Nath Mukherjee at Bagh Bazar. There were present Swami Brahmananda, Swami Yogananda, Mr. G.C. Ghosh, Atul Babu, and one or two other friends. I said, "Well, Swamiji, the two gentlemen who went to see you the other day wanted to ask you some questions about pranayama, which had been raised in their minds by reading your book on Raja Yoga some time before you returned to this country. And they had then told me of them. But that day, before they asked you anything, you yourself raised those doubts that had occurred to them and solved them. They were very much surprised and inquired of me if I had let you know their doubts beforehand." Swamiji replied, "Similar occurrences having come to pass many times in the West, people often used to ask me, 'How could you know the questions that were agitating our minds?' This knowledge does not happen to me so often, but with Sri Ramakrishna it was almost always there." In this connection, Atul Babu asked him, "You have said in Raja Yoga that one can come to know all about one's previous births. Do you know them yourself?" Swamiji, "Yes, I do." Atul Babu, "What do you know? Have you any objection to tell?" Swamiji, "I can know them. I do know them, but I prefer not to say anything in detail." Eighth, the art and science of music, Eastern and Western. Shri Priya Sinha. It was an evening in July 1898 at the Mutt in Nilambar Mukherjee's garden house, Belur. Swamiji with all his disciples had been meditating, and at the close of the meditation came out and sat in one of the rooms. As it was raining hard and a cold wind was blowing, he shut the door and began to sing to the accompaniment of Tanpura. The singing being over, a long conversation on music followed. Swami Shivananda asked him, "What is Western music like?" Swamiji, "Oh, it is very good. There is in it a perfection of harmony, which we have not attained. Only to our untrained ears it does not sound well, hence we do not like it, and think that the singers howl like jackals. I also had the same sort of impression, but when I began to listen to the music with attention and study it minutely, I came more and more to understand it, and I was lost in admiration. Such is the case with every art. In glancing at a highly finished painting, we cannot understand where its beauty lies. Moreover, unless the eye is to a certain extent trained, one cannot appreciate the subtle touches and blendings, the inner genius of a work of art. What real music we have lies in Kirtana and Drupada. The rest has been spoiled by being modulated according to the Islamic methods. Do you think that singing the short and light airs of tappa songs in a nasal voice and flitting like lightning from one note to another by fits and starts are the best things in the world of music? Not so. Unless each note is given full play in every scale, all the science of music is marred. In painting, by keeping in touch with nature, you can make it as artistic as you like. There is no harm in doing that, and the result will be nothing but good. Similarly, in music, you can display any amount of skill by keeping to science, and it will be pleasing to the ear. The Mohammedans took up the different ragas and raginis after coming into India, but they put such a stamp of their own coloring on the art of tappa songs that all the science in music was destroyed. Question: why Maharaj, sir, who has not a liking for music in tappa? Swamiji: the chirping of crickets sounds very good to some. The Santals think their music also to be the best of all. You do not seem to understand that when one note comes upon another in such quick succession, it not only robs music of all grace, but on the other hand, creates discordance rather. Do not the permutation and combination of the seven keynotes form one or other of the different melodies of music, known as ragas and raginis? Now, in tappa, if one slurs over a whole melody, raga, and creates a new tune, and over and above that, if the voice is raised to the highest pitch by tremulous modulation, say, how can the raga be kept intact? Again, the poetry of music is completely destroyed if there be in it such profuse use of light and short strains just for effect. To sing by keeping to the idea, meant to be conveyed by a song, totally disappeared from our country when tappas came into vogue. Nowadays, it seems the true art is reviving a little with the improvement in theatres, but on the other hand, all regard for ragas and raginis is being more and more flung to the winds. Accordingly, to those who are past masters in the art of singing Drupada, it is painful to hear tappas. But in our music, the cadence or a duly regulated rise and fall of voice or sound is very good. The French detected and appreciated this trait first and tried to adapt and introduce it in their music. After their doing this, the whole of Europe has now thoroughly mastered it. Question: Maharaj, their music seems to be preeminently martial, whereas that element appears to be altogether absent in ours. Swamiji: oh no, we have it also. In martial music, harmony is greatly needed. We sadly lack harmony. Hence, it does not show itself so much. Our music had been improving steadily, but when the Mohammedans came, they took possession of it in such a way that the tree of music could grow no further. The music of the Westerners is much advanced. They have the sentiment of pathos as well as of heroism in their music, which is as it should be. But our antique musical instrument made from the gourd has been improved no further. Question: which of the ragas and raginis are martial in tune? Swamiji: every raga may be made martial if it is set in harmony and the instruments are tuned accordingly. Some of the raginis can also become martial. The conversation was then closed as it was time for supper. After supper, Swamiji inquired as to the sleeping arrangements for the guests who had come from Calcutta to the Mutt to pass the night, and he then retired to his bedroom. 9th. The old institution of living with the Guru, the present university system, lack of Shraddha. We have a national history, Western science coupled with Vedanta, the so-called higher education, the need of technical education and education on national lines, the story of Satyakama, mere book learning and education under Tyagis, Shri Ramakrishna and the Pandits, establishment of mutts with sadhus in charge of colleges, textbooks for boys to be compiled, stop early marriage, plan of sending unmarried graduates to Japan, the secret of Japan's greatness, art, Asian and European, art and utility, styles of dress, the food question and poverty. Shri Priya Nath Sinha. It was about 2 years after the new mutt had been constructed, and while all the Swamis were living there, that I came one morning to pay a visit to my Guru. Seeing me, Swamiji smiled and after inquiring of my welfare, etc., said, "You are going to stay today, are you not?" "Certainly," I said, and after various inquiries, I asked, "Well, Maharaj, what is your idea of educating our boys?" Swamiji: Guru Griha Vasa, living with the Guru. Question. How? Swamiji. In the same way as of old. But with this education has to be combined modern Western science. Both these are necessary. Question. Why? What is the defect in the present university system? Swamiji. It is almost wholly one of defects. Why, it is nothing but a perfect machine for turning out clerks. I would even thank my stars if that were all. But no. See how men are becoming destitute of Shraddha and faith. They assert that the Gita is only an interpolation, and that the Vedas are but rustic songs. They like to master every detail concerning things and nations outside of India, but if you ask them, they do not know even the names of their own forefathers up to the seventh generation, not to speak of the 14th. Question. But what does that matter? What if they do not know the names of their forefathers? Swamiji. Don't think so. A nation that has no history of its own has nothing in this world. Do you believe that one who has such faith and pride as to feel, I come of noble descent, can ever turn out to be bad? How could that be? That faith in himself would curb his actions and feelings, so much so that he would rather die than commit wrong. So a national history keeps a nation well restrained and does not allow it to sink so low. Oh, I know you will say, but we have not such a history. No, there is not any, according to those who think like you. Neither is there any, according to your big university scholars. And so also think those who, having travelled through the West in one great rush, come back dressed in European style and assert, we have nothing, we are barbarians. Of course, we have no history exactly like that of other countries. Suppose we take rice, and the Englishmen do not. Would you for that reason imagine that they all die of starvation and are going to be exterminated? They live quite well on what they can easily procure or produce in their own country and what is suited to them. Similarly, we have our own history exactly as it ought to have been for us. Will that history be made extinct by shutting your eyes and crying, Alas, we have no history? Those who have eyes to see find a luminous history there, and on the strength of that, they know the nation is still alive. But that history has to be rewritten. It should be restated and suited to the understanding and ways of thinking which our men have acquired in the present age through Western education. Question. How has that to be done? Swamiji. That is too big a subject for a talk now. However, to bring that about, the old institution of living with the Guru and similar systems of imparting education are needed. What we want are Western science coupled with Vedanta, Brahmacharya as the guiding motto, and also Shraddha and faith in one's own self. Another thing that we want is the abolition of that system which aims at educating our boys in the same manner as that of the man who battered his ass, being advised that it could thereby be turned into a horse. Question. What do you mean by that? Swamiji. You see, no one can teach anybody. The teacher spoils everything by thinking that he is teaching. Thus, Vedanta says that within man is all knowledge. Even in a boy it is so, and it requires only an awakening, and that much is the work of a teacher. We have to do only so much for the boys that they may learn to apply their own intellect to the proper use of their hands, legs, ears, eyes, etc., and finally everything will become easy. But the root is religion. Religion is as the rice, and everything else like the curries. Taking only curries causes indigestion, and so is the case with taking rice alone. Our pedagogues are making parrots of our boys and ruining their brains by cramming a lot of subjects into them. Looking from one standpoint, you should rather be grateful to the Viceroy for his proposal of reforming the university system, which means practically abolishing higher education. The country will at least feel some relief by having breathing time. Goodness gracious, what a fuss and fury about graduating! And after a few days, all cools down. And after all that, what is it they learn but that what religion and customs we have are all bad, and what the Westerners have are all good? At last they cannot keep the wolf from the door. What does it matter if this higher education remains or goes? It would be better if the people got a little technical education, so that they might find work and earn their bread, instead of dawdling about and crying for service. Question. Yes, the Marwaris are wiser, since they do not accept service and most of them engage themselves in some trade. Swamiji. Nonsense. They are on the way to bringing ruin on the country. They have little understanding of their own interests. You are much better. because you have more of an eye towards manufacturers. If the money that they lay out in their business and with which they make only a small percentage of profit were utilized in conducting a few factories and workshops, instead of filling the pockets of Europeans by letting them reap the benefit of most of the transactions, then it would not only conduce to the well being of the country, but bring by far the greater amount of profit to them as well. It is only the Kabulis who do not care for service. The spirit of independence is in their very bone and marrow. Propose to any one of them to take service, and you will see what follows. Question. Well, Maharaj, in case higher education is abolished, will not the men become as stupid as cows, as they were before? Swamiji. What nonsense! Can ever a lion become a jackal? What do you mean? Is it ever possible for the sons of the land that has nourished the whole world with knowledge from time immemorial to turn as stupid as cows because of the abolition of higher education by Lord Curzon? Question. But think what our people were before the advent of the English and what they are now. Swamiji. Does higher education mean mere study of material sciences and turning out things of everyday use by machinery? The use of higher education is to find out how to solve the problems of life, and this is what is engaging the profound thought of the modern civilized world. But it was solved in our country thousands of years ago. Question. But your Vedanta also was about to disappear? Swamiji. It might be so. In the efflux of time, the light of Vedanta now and then seems as if about to be extinguished. And when that happens, the Lord has to incarnate himself in the human body. He then infuses such life and strength into religion that it goes on again for some time with irresistible vigor. That life and strength has come into it again. Question. What proof is there, Maharaj, that India has freely contributed her knowledge to the rest of the world? Swamiji. History itself bears testimony to the fact. All the soul-elevating ideas and the different branches of knowledge that exist in the world are found on proper investigation to have their roots in India. Aglow with enthusiasm, Swamiji dwelt at length on this topic. His health was very bad at the time, and moreover, owing to the intense heat of summer, he was feeling thirsty and drinking water too often. At last he said, Dear Singhi, get a glass of iced water for me, please. I shall explain everything to you clearly. After drinking the iced water, he began afresh. Swamiji. What we need, is to study independent of foreign control, different branches of the knowledge that is our own, and with it, the English language and Western science. We need technical education and all else that may develop industries so that men, instead of seeking for service, may earn enough to provide for themselves and save something against a rainy day. Question. What were you going to say the other day about the toll Sanskrit boarding school system? Swamiji. Haven't you read the stories from the Upanishads? I will tell you one. Satyakama went to live the life of a brahmacharin with his guru. The guru gave into his charge some cows and sent him away to the forest with them. Many months passed by, and when Satyakama saw that the number of cows was doubled, he thought of returning to his guru. On his way back, one of the bulls, the fire, and some other animals gave him instructions about the highest Brahman. When the disciple came back, the guru at once saw by a mere glance at his face that the disciple had learnt the knowledge of the supreme Brahman. Now the moral this story is meant to teach is that true education is gained by constant living in communion with nature. Knowledge should be acquired in that way. Otherwise, by educating oneself in the toll of a pandit, you will be only a human ape all your life. One should live from his very boyhood with one whose character is like a blazing fire and should have before him a living example of the highest teaching. Mere reading that it is a sin to tell a lie will be of no use. Every boy should be trained to practice absolute brahmacharya, and then only, faith, shraddha will come. Otherwise, why will not one who has no shraddha speak an untruth? In our country, the imparting of knowledge has always been through men of renunciation. Later, the Pandits, by monopolizing all knowledge and restricting it to the tolls, have only brought the country to the brink of ruin. India had all good prospects so long as Tyagis, men of renunciation, used to impart knowledge. Question. What do you mean, Maharaj? There are no sannyasins in other countries, but see how by dint of their knowledge India is laid prostrate at their feet. Swamiji. Don't talk nonsense, my dear. Hear what I say. India will have to carry others' shoes forever on her head if the charge of imparting knowledge to her sons does not again fall upon the shoulders of Tyagis. Don't you know how an illiterate boy, possessed of renunciation, turned the heads of your great old Pandits? Once at the Dakshineshwar temple, the Brahmana who was in charge of the worship of Vishnu broke a leg of the image. Pandits were brought together at a meeting to give their opinions, and they, after consulting old books and manuscripts, declared that the worship of this broken image could not be sanctioned according to the Shastras, and a new image would have to be consecrated. There was consequently a great stir. Sri Ramakrishna was called at last. He heard and asked, "Does a wife forsake her husband in case he becomes lame?" What followed? The Pandits were struck dumb. All their Shastric commentaries and erudition could not withstand the force of this simple statement. If what you say was true, why should Sri Ramakrishna come down to this earth? And why should he discourage mere book learning so much? That new life force which he brought with him has to be instilled into learning and education, and then the real work will be done. Question. But that is easier said than done. Swamiji. Had it been easy, it would not have been necessary for him to come. What you have to do now is to establish a mutt in every town and in every village. Can you do that? Do something at least. Start a big mutt in the heart of Calcutta. A well-educated sadhu should be at the head of that center, and under him there should be departments for teaching practical science and arts, with a specialist sannyasin in charge of each of these departments. Question. Where will you get such sadhus? Swamiji. We shall have to manufacture them. Therefore, I always say that some young men with burning patriotism and renunciation are needed. None can master a thing perfectly in so short a time as the Tyagis will. After a short silence, Swamiji said, Singhi, there are so many things left to be done for our country that thousands like you and me are needed. What will mere talk do? See to what a miserable condition the country is reduced. Now do something. We haven't even got a single book well suited for the little boys. Question. Why there are so many books of Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar for the boys? No sooner had I said this than he laughed out and said, Yes, there you read, Ishwar Nirakar Chaitanya Swarup. God is without form and of the essence of pure knowledge. Subal Ati Subodh Balak. Subal is a very good boy, and so on. That won't do. We must compose some books in Bengali as also in English with short stories from the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, the Upanishads, etc. in very easy and simple language. And these are to be given to our little boys to read. It was about 11 o'clock by this time. The sky became suddenly overcast, and a cool breeze began to blow. Swamiji was greatly delighted at the prospect of rain. He got up and said, Let us, Singhi, have a stroll by the side of the Ganga. We did so, and he recited many stanzas from the Meghaduta of Kalidasa. But the one undercurrent of thought that was all the time running through his mind was the good of India. He exclaimed, Look here, Singhi, can you do one thing? Can you put a stop to the marriage of our boys for some time? I said, Well, Maharaj, how can we think of that when the Babus are trying, on the other hand, all sorts of means to make marriage cheaper? Swamiji, don't trouble your head on that score. Who can stem the tide of time? All such agitations will end in empty sound, that is all. The dearer the marriages become, the better for the country. What a hurry-scurry of passing examinations and marrying right off. It seems as if no one was to be left a bachelor, but it is just the same thing again. Next year. After a short silence, Swamiji again said, If I can get some unmarried graduates, I may try to send them over to Japan and make arrangements for their technical education there, so that when they come back, they may turn their knowledge to the best account for India. What a good thing that would be. Question. Why, Maharaj, is it better for us to go to Japan than to England? Swamiji. Certainly, in my opinion, if all our rich and educated men once go and see Japan, their eyes will be opened. Question. How? Swamiji. There in Japan you find a fine assimilation of knowledge, and not its indigestion, as we have here. They have taken everything from the Europeans, but they remain Japanese all the same, and have not turned European. while in our country, the terrible mania of becoming westernized has seized upon us like a plague. I said, Maharaj, I have seen some Japanese paintings. One cannot but marvel at their art. Its inspiration seems to be something which is their own and beyond imitation. Swamiji, quite so. They are great as a nation because of their art. Don't you see they are Asians, as we are? And though we have lost almost everything, yet what we still have is wonderful. The very soul of the Asian is interwoven with art. The Asian never uses a thing unless there be art in it. Don't you know that art is, with us, a part of religion? How greatly is a lady admired among us, who can nicely paint the floors and walls on auspicious occasions with the paste of rice powder. How great an artist was Sri Ramakrishna himself. Question. The English art is also good, is it not? Swamiji. What a stupid fool you are. But what is the use of blaming you when that seems to be the prevailing way of thinking? Alas, to such a state is our country reduced. The people will look upon their own gold as brass, while the brass of the foreigner is gold to them. This is indeed the magic wrought by modern education. Know that since the time the Europeans have come into contact with Asia, they are trying to infuse art into their own life. Myself. If others hear you talk like this, Maharaj, they will think that you take a pessimistic view of things. Swamiji. Naturally. What else can they think who move in a rut? How I wish I could show you everything through my eyes. Look at their buildings, how commonplace, how meaningless they are. Look at those big government buildings. Can you, just by seeing their outside, make out any meaning for which each of them stands? No, because they are all so unsymbolical. Take again the dress of Westerners. Their stiff coats and straight pants fitting almost tightly to the body are in our estimation hardly decent. Is it not so? And oh, what beauty indeed in that! Now go all over our motherland and see if you cannot read aright, from their very appearance, the meaning for which our buildings stand, and how much art there is in them. The glass is their drinking vessel, and ours is the metal ghati, pitcher shaped. Which of the two is artistic? Have you seen the farmers' homes in our villages? Myself. Yes, I have, of course. Swamiji. What have you seen of them? I did not know what to say. However, I replied, Maharaj, they are faultlessly neat and clean, the yards and floors being daily well plastered over. Swamiji. Have you seen their granaries for keeping paddy? What an art is there in them! What a variety of paintings even on their mud walls! And then, if you go and see how the lower classes live in the West, you would at once mark the difference. Their ideal is utility, ours, art. The Westerner looks for utility in everything, whereas with us, art is everywhere. With the Western education, those beautiful ghatis of ours have been discarded, and enamel glasses have usurped their place in our homes. Thus, the ideal of utility has been imbibed by us to such an extent as to make it look little short of the ridiculous. Now, what we need is a combination of art and utility. Japan has done that very quickly, and so she has advanced by giant strides. Now, in their turn, the Japanese are going to teach the Westerners. Question. Maharaj, which nation in the world dresses best? Swamiji. The Aryans do. Even the Europeans admit that. How picturesquely their dresses hang in folds. The royal costumes of most nations are, to some extent, a sort of imitation of the Aryans. The same attempt is made there to keep them in folds, and those costumes bear a marked difference to their national style. By the by, Singhi, leave off that wretched habit of wearing those European shirts. Question. Why, Maharaj? Swamiji. For the reason that they are used by the Westerners only as underwear. They never like to see them worn outside. How mistaken of the Bengalis to do so. As if one should wear anything and everything. As if there was no unwritten law about dress. As if there was no ancestral style to follow. Our people are outcasted by taking the food touched by the lower classes. It would have been very well if the same law applied to their wearing any irregular style of dress. Why can't you adapt your dress in some way to our own style? What sense is there in your adopting European shirts and coats? It began to rain now, and the dinner bell also rang. So we went in to partake of the prasada, consecrated food, with others. During the meal, Swamiji said, addressing me, Concentrated food should be taken. To fill the stomach with a large quantity of rice is the root of laziness. A little while after he said again, "Look at the Japanese. They take rice with the soup of split peas twice or thrice a day. But even the strongly built take a little at a time, though the number of meals may be more. Those who are well to do among them take meat daily, while we stuff ourselves twice a day up to the throat, as it were, and the whole of our energy is exhausted in digesting such a quantity of rice." Question. Is it feasible for us Bengalis, poor as we are, to take meat? Swamiji. Why not? You can afford to have it in small quantities. Half a pound a day is quite enough. The real evil is idleness, which is the principal cause of our poverty. Suppose the head of a firm gets displeased with someone and decreases his pay, or out of 3 or 4 bread-winning sons in a family, one suddenly dies. What do? Why, they at once curtail the quantity of milk for the children, or live on 1 meal a day, having a little popped rice or so at night. Question. But what else can they do under the circumstances? Swamiji. Why can't they exert themselves and earn more to keep up their standard of food? But no, they must go to their local addas, rendezvous, and idle hours away. Oh, if they only knew how they wasted their time. 10th. The discrimination of the 4 castes according to Jati and Guna. Brahmanas and Kshatriyas in the West. The Kula Guru system in Bengal. Shri Priya Nath Sinha. Once I went to see Swamiji while he was staying in Calcutta at the house of the late Balaram Basu. After a long conversation about Japan and America, I asked him, "Well, Swamiji, how many disciples have you in the West?" Swamiji, "A good many." Question. 2 or 3 thousands? Swamiji, maybe more than that. Question. Are they all initiated by you with mantras? Swamiji, yes. Question. Did you give them permission to utter pranava, Om? Swamiji, yes. Question. How did you, Maharaj? They say that the Shudras have no right to pranava, and none has except the Brahmins. Moreover, the Westerners are mlechas, not even Shudras. Swamiji, how do you know that those whom I have initiated are not Brahmins? Myself, where could you get Brahmins outside India, in the lands of the Yavanas and Mlechas? Swamiji, my disciples are all Brahmins. I quite admit the truth of the words that none except the Brahmins has the right to pranava. But the son of a Brahmin is not necessarily always a Brahmin. Though there is every possibility of his being one, he may not become so. Did you not hear that the nephew of Aghor Chakravarti of Bagh Bazar became a sweeper and actually used to do all the menial services of his adopted caste? Was he not the son of a Brahmin? The Brahmin caste and the Brahmanya qualities are 2 distinct things. In India, one is held to be a Brahmin by one's caste, but in the West, one should be known as such by one's Brahmanya qualities. As there are 3 gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas, so there are gunas which show a man to be a Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Shudra. The qualities of being a Brahmin or a Kshatriya are dying out from the country, but in the West they have now attained to Kshatriyahood, from which the next step is Brahminhood, and many there are who have qualified themselves for that. Question. Then you call those Brahmins who are Sattvika by nature? Swamiji, quite so. As there are Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, one or other of these gunas more or less, in every man, so the qualities which make a Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Shudra are inherent in every man, more or less. But at times one or other of these qualities predominates in him in varying degrees, and it is manifested accordingly. Take a man in his different pursuits, for example, when he is engaged in serving another for pay, he is in Shudrahood. When he is busy transacting some piece of business for profit on his own account, he is a Vaishya. When he fights to right wrongs, then the qualities of a Kshatriya come out in him. And when he meditates on God or passes his time in conversation about him, then he is a Brahmin. Naturally, it is quite possible for one to be changed from one caste into another. Otherwise, how did Vishwamitra become a Brahmin and Parshurama a Kshatriya? Question. What you say seems to be quite right. But why then do not our pundits and family gurus teach us the same thing? Swamiji, that is one of the great evils of our country, but let the matter rest now. Swamiji here spoke highly of the Westerners' spirit of practicality and how, when they take up religion also, that spirit shows itself. Myself. True, Maharaj. I have heard that their spiritual and psychic powers are very quickly developed when they practice religion. The other day, Swami Saradananda showed me a letter written by one of his Western disciples describing the spiritual powers highly developed in the writer through the sadhanas practiced for only 4 months. Swamiji. So you see, now you understand whether there are Brahmins in the West or not. You have Brahmins here also, but they are bringing the country down to the verge of ruin by their awful tyranny, and consequently, what they have naturally is vanishing away by degrees. The Guru initiates his disciple with a mantra, but that has come to be a trait with him. And then, how wonderful is the relation nowadays between a Guru and his disciple? Perchance, the Guru has nothing to eat at home, and his wife brings the matter to his notice and says, "Pray go once again to your disciples, dear. Will your playing at dice all day long save us from hunger?" The Brahmin in reply says, "Very well, remind me of it tomorrow morning. I have come to hear that my disciple so and so is having a run of luck, and moreover, I have not been to him for a long time." This is what your cooler Guru system has come to in Bengal. Priestcraft in the West is not so degenerated as yet. It is on the whole better than your kind.